Well, welcome back everybody. It's June 3rd, 2015. As usual, I'm John here with another video. Before I get any further into this, I need to let you guys know that all of the music you're hearing during this video is from bensound.com. So if you liked any of the music, go check it out and give it a download. This was a request by a DeviantArt user who came to my page, AntonioRenteria. Now, Antonio made a request for a character from Monsters vs. Aliens, which is one of my all-time favorite movies just because of how hilarious it is. This is Ginormica, or Susan. But he wanted me to put a twist on the character. He wanted me to draw her as the corpse bride. Well, Antonio, here you go. This is me drawing Ginormica / Susan as the corpse bride. I was trying a lot of new things on this drawing, so don't be too hard on me if it's not quite up to my normal quality standards. Although I do think that there was a lot of things that I learned on this and a lot of things that turned out better than normal, but I'm not sure if I entirely got Susan's likeness. I'm not sure it looks exactly like her, which I was kind of disappointed about, but after seeing the drawing finished and it all colored in and everything, I was pretty happy with some of the new shading techniques that I was trying. So even though it may not exactly look like Ginormica, I think that there's a lot of qualities to this piece that kind of made up for it. So last time I promised you guys that I would talk a little bit about software and what the differences were between like Paint Tool SCI, Photoshop, GIMP, and all these different kinds of softwares and which ones I like better for what and why. So way back about 1 million years ago, I owned a piece of software called Photoshop. It was Photoshop Elements 3.0. That's like a gazillion years old. And guess what? That version of Photoshop came with the first tablet that I ever owned. It was a Wacom Graphire 3, I think it was. And that was really my first experience with ever doing anything artistic digitally on the computer. Before that, everything was paper. And I used that software for a long time, and it was beautiful and I loved it, and I liked Photoshop so much that I actually downloaded the 30-day trial of CS3 when it came out. So I had 30 days of CS3, and then after that I had to jump back to my Photoshop Elements 3.0, and you can guess the migration back was not a fun one. And there were just some features in CS3. I think it was CS3. It might have been earlier than that. But there were some features in that version of Photoshop that I just couldn't live without anymore. And so that was when I began my journey on to see what else was available out there, what other different softwares there were. Because Photoshop is really expensive, and I was young at the time and didn't have very much money. Well, of course, nowadays they have the Photoshop subscriptions, but at the time they didn't have that, or I didn't know about it, one or the other. And then, obviously, GIMP is like the biggest Photoshop alternative that's free on the market. Oh, it's the most popular anyways. And that's what I began using. And I used that for a long time because it had a lot of the features that the newer Photoshop had. And it wasn't all as easy to use, but the features were there, and it was free, so you can't really complain. And now we come to Paint Tool SCI. Well, I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with Paint Tool SCI, actually. I like it because of its speed, and maybe newer versions of Photoshop are just as fast as this are, but I wouldn't know about it because I haven't used Photoshop in a long time. But jumping back and forth between GIMP and Paint Tool SCI, there is a huge performance difference. It's huge. Paint Tool SCI is so much faster. But there's certain things about Paint Tool SCI that are not standard. For example, The color correction. When you're using Paint Tool Sci, there's basically two different options for color correction, and that was something that I constantly used in GIMP and in Photoshop. So it kind of means that I have to jump back and forth a little bit. But as an illustration tool, it's beautiful. I love it. So I find myself doing a lot of sketching and a lot of inking in Paint Tool Sci. And even a lot of the shading I do in Paint Tool Sci because of the speed. The speed is so beautiful about it. And you'll notice I'm kind of working in black and white on this piece. And that's because it's something new that I'm trying. It has nothing to do with anything. But it was just so fast. Especially since the tablet that I'm using has a slow processor. I have kind of two things going on in my setup. What you're looking at right here is the desktop to my motion computing LE1600, which is like processor wise and graphics wise is not very good at all. But the great thing about it is that it has, you know, the pressure sensitive Wacom tablet in it. So it's almost like using a Cintiq. It actually, my brother owns a Cintiq, and I've used both, and they're virtually the same, aside from the fact that he has to use a desktop, so his performance is better on his software. So don't get me wrong, Cintiqs are better, but if you're starting out, this is just, the LE1600 is just way cheaper. I was looking at it on eBay, like, I don't know, last week or something, and it was less than $200. And that came with, it's a laptop, so that came with, you know, the computer and the tablet. And so, you know, it's just cheap, and it works, you know, just about as good. So that's a little bit about my setup that I normally use. And that's kind of how I came to using Paint Tool Sci. One day I'm going to own a good copy of Photoshop, or, you know, be leasing it or whatever. But for now, I mean, you've seen the artwork that I've done. It does everything that I need it to do, and I don't need to upgrade at the moment. Like I said before, the reason that I switched over from Photoshop to GIMP was because of the lack of features in the version of Photoshop that I had. And the reason that I switched over from GIMP to Paint Tool Sci was because of the performance. So you can really see that the reason that I go for different software is because of what it will do for me. And currently, Photoshop is not something that I need right now. So, you know, when I'm ready, I'll fork out the money and get it done. But for now, don't need it. Well, it looks like we've moved on to the coloring stage, which normally is one of the longer processes, but with this new technique that I've been kind of trying out, it's actually getting quicker and quicker, which is good, because that was one of the things that took me a long time before, and now it's not taking as much time, so that's a good thing. Of course, I'm a huge fan of the cel-shaded look, but I did want to try this out. I wanted to try out kind of some soft shading and see how that looks. And once again, moving back to the colored lines thing, that's something that you guys know that I struggle with. I mean, listen to the last few videos I did. That's something that I just can't decide about, because I've seen people make the black lines work so well, and then I've seen people make the colored lines work so well that I just cannot decide. It's so hard. Anyways, what was I talking about? So you can see now we're jumped back into GIMP, and GIMP's doing its thing. I add a lot of effects and things like that to make the artwork really stand out and look real polished in GIMP, because the features are just not there in Paint Tool Sci. Well, guys, it looks like we're coming up to the end of the video. Let me know what it is that you think about the artwork and everything like that. I'm thinking I'm probably not going to be doing requests for a little while, because I still have a few that are stacked up. But yeah, enjoy the art. Come visit my DeviantArt page, leave a comment on YouTube or on DeviantArt, and I will see you guys in the next video. So until then, keep on being awesome.